Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Parish of Plymouth. My name is Nicolette, and I'll be your worship associate today. I use she and they pronouns. Today's service, Where Do You Come From, will be given by our Reverend Arthur Lavoie, with music by our music director, Sandi, Hammond. Today's technical director is Linda Harding, and thanks to her hard work, our service will not only be available on our YouTube and Facebook pages, but also on local access television. We welcome anyone who is watching via those venues. As is our usual, the recording will end after the postlude, and from there we will pass our basket. We appreciate your time and treasure in keeping our community as vibrant and beautiful as it is. You can also give online via PayPal, that's actually what I do, and you can find a link in order to do that via our website. After we pass the basket, we will do our traditional candles of joys and concerns. And today, I am thrilled to announce that coffee hour is back. It will be outside, and we invite you to join us for some much-needed community time together. Whoever you are, whomever you love, and whatever you believe, you are welcome here. Let us walk together this hour. Our call to worship today.
Yeah, I have a welcome before you do that. So, my name is the Reverend Arthur Lavoie. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And I want to offer a special welcome to any of you who are watching online, either on Facebook or YouTube or one of the local public access television stations that will broadcast the service throughout the week. Thank you very much for being with us this morning and part of our First Parish community. If you have any questions about this congregation, this church, or Unitarian Universalism, you can check out our website, firstparishplymouthuu.org. I should have memorized that by now. And find out information about us or a way to contact me or our administrator, Jeannie. So thank you once again for being here.
Our call to worship today is by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We may have all come on different ships, but we are in the same boat now. Our hymn today is hymn number 1003, Where Do We Come From? We ask that if you do sing, please keep your masks on.
So the words to this hymn are in your order of service. And there are 3 parts. We're not going to do it in a round, and we ask people to mask while singing.
Okay, my mask doesn't want to stay on.
Uh,
I'll just hold it.
okay.
Okay.
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. I invite people to stand and join in singing if you have a mask. And we're going to pick up the pace. Where do we come from? What are we? Where? Did I sing too low?
No, No, we're doing rounds though, right?
We don't have enough people to do a round.
Oh, we do though, we can just split it differently. No, I think,
We're just gonna sing it through twice.
okay.
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Thank you, but please remain standing. As we join with me in the words of the chalice lighting that are printed in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, to speak the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you. Please be seated.
Good morning. I'm Keller, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I was so excited when Art said that this service was going to be looking at our ancestry. Where do we come from? Part of the reason is because I'm one of those people that got obsessed with Ancestry.com and spent way too many hours trying to piece together my family. I asked my dad and my uncle once, tell me some stories. And they said, well, we have a horse thief in the family. Oh, where? Oh, we don't know. We just know there's a horse thief somewhere in our family. Okay. So I started to look really deep. I found out that one of my relatives came from Germany to New York, actually down low in Germany, came to New York and became a famous lithographer. Cool, I have an artist in the family, sort of. Well, it turns out he did lithography on cigar boxes. Okay, it's still art, but I have no way to see what they look like. And his name, I loved. George Schlegel. Schlegel. You just want to kind of say it about it, because it sounds kind of weird. Schlegel. But that was my fourth great-grandfather, who was famous and rich and had 3 different wives in his life and had 14 children. So I kept searching. I found out I have an ancestor named Dora Marie Davis. Never heard of her. Not sure how she fit in. Get ready for this. It turns out she is my paternal grandmother of the husband of my great aunt. I have no idea what to do with that. Then I found the horse thief. His name is John Convey, was John Convey. He was 24 years old and moved with his family from Ireland over to England. He brought with him a 17-year-old wife named Mary Hunt. Within the second year of their marriage, he was incarcerated for horse thievery. And I can see the written document stating why he was incarcerated. Okay, that's cool, I guess. But then what happened to Mary? I found out at 19 years old, with a 3-month-old baby, she boarded a boat to America. At 19, she showed up at Ellis Island. No relatives, no family, no money, no husband. But thanks to her, my family still goes on. Thanks to this incredibly strong woman, my family is here. That's cool. And so I'm going to take the children on a discovery mission. We're going to see what we know about our ancestors, and we're going to find out how to fill in our tree. Come on, guys.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Today's reading is a poem called Child of the Americas by Aurora Levins Morales. I am a child of the Americas, a light-skinned mestiza of the Caribbean, a child of many diaspora, born into this continent at a crossroads. I am a U.S. Puerto Rican Jew, a product of the ghettos of New York I have never known. An immigrant, and the daughter and granddaughter of immigrants. I speak English with a passion. It's the tool of my consciousness, a flashing knife blade of crystal, my tool, my craft. I am a Caribena, island-grown, Spanish is in my flesh, ripples from my tongue, lodges in my hips, the language of garlic and mangoes, the singing in my poetry, the flying gestures of my hands. I am of Latino America, rooted in the history of my continent. I speak from that body. I am not African. Africa is in me, but I cannot return. I am not Taína. Taíno is in me, but there is no way back. I am not European. Europe lives in me, but I have no home there. I am new. History made me. My first language was Spanish. I was born at the crossroads, and I am whole.
If you'd like to join in on the chorus as I sing today's musical reflection, it goes like this, and it's the Martin Luther King quote that was shared earlier. We may have come here on different ships, but we're in the same boat now. We may have come here on different ships, but we're in the same boat now. Do that one more time for you. We may have come here on different ships, but we're in the
Where do you come from? Mark was often asked that question. I first met Mark Watanabe in church. He had been a Unitarian Universalist for a long time and joined the UU Church in San Francisco in the fall of 1998. He had just moved back to that city after living in Chicago for 11 years. I was also involved in that church while attending seminary across the bay in Berkeley. Mark and I were together for 13 years. And not being Caucasian, he was often asked, "Where do you come from?" For most non-Anglo folks, that can be an insulting question. But Mark decided that he was going to have fun with it and make the questioner uncomfortable. He would say, "I was born in a city called Los Angeles, California. Have you heard of it?" That would catch people off guard, but most often they would continue the inane line of questioning by asking, "Well, where are your parents from?" Mark would then honestly respond, "My father was born in Los Angeles, and my mother was born on her family's farm in Washington State." That would really confuse people. Mark would then answer the question about his racial and cultural background with the following kick in the gut. "My parents and their families lost everything at the beginning of World War II when they were shipped off to a Japanese internment camp in Oklahoma. That's where my parents met." If I were present for this conversation, I would often then add, Mark's family has been here longer than most of mine. That probably makes him more of an American than I am. But I never get asked where I come from. I can understand that we like to categorize people who aren't familiar to us. We do that to make sense of the world around us and feel more safe and secure. But why is it that we don't think to ask other white folk where they come from? We generally only do that with people who look different from us. We also don't ask this question of people we think are African American. We certainly don't want to be reminded of slavery and bondage, the Middle Passage, and the history of plantations and lynchings. We don't want to hear stories that will upset us, just as the people that questioned Mark were not ready to hear about what people lost when they were sent to the Japanese detention camps. But however we look at it, this is an insulting question for many people of color. It points out the differences among us and gives the assumption that you must be from somewhere else and therefore you don't belong here. It's also insulting because those of us from European ancestry have not often done enough exploration of our own cultural heritage and the reasons for our family's arrival here. We shouldn't be asking questions that we ourselves are not able to answer. Where did your families come from? And why did they come here? Were they fleeing some kind of oppression or economic hardship? Were they brought over against their will as indentured servants or slaves? Did they come legally? Or did they overstay visas or sneak into the U.S. somehow? My maternal grandfather was a child when he, his parents, and his brother emigrated from Portugal in the first part of the 20th century. When he was a teenager, his parents and brother returned to Portugal, but he stayed behind. He was an ambitious man and knew that there would be better opportunities for him here. When he was around 20 years old, he went back on a 3-month visa because his mother wanted to set him up with a young woman from their village. In those 3 months, my grandparents met, courted, and married. After returning to the U.S., it took almost a year and a half for my grandfather to be able to send for my grandmother. And at 19 years old, this young woman and an infant daughter boarded a freighter to cross the ocean and be with a man she barely knew. That being said, they had a wonderful and loving relationship. And 9 months after her arrival, my mother was the first in her family born in the U.S. My father's family is French-Canadian, as you can probably tell from my last name, Lavoie or Lavoie. And for a long time, the border between the U.S. and Canada was rather porous and easy to cross. There were a lot of people going back and forth for several generations. As it turned out, my grandfather and his siblings were born here and settled in Western Mass. And my grandmother was born in Quebec, and most of her family still live there. With the more stringent border crossing rules today, it is unlikely that my family would be able to be here. I first met this young couple when they started attending the church I served in Dorchester. We'll call them Jose and Jill to protect their privacy. After attending a couple of services, they made an appointment to meet with me to plan a wedding. Jill was of English and Irish heritage and grew up in Massachusetts. Jose was Chilean and had crossed the southern border with his parents and brother when he was a teenager. They were undocumented. When DACA was introduced, the program to give temporary legal status to children brought over by their parents, Jose's brother was able to get into that program. But Jose was just above the age cutoff and was not able to get legal papers. Jose and Jill met and fell in love while working on immigration issues when they both lived in Washington, D.C. At one point, though, Jose was arrested and fitted with an electronic ankle bracelet while awaiting a hearing to be deported. Though he had no real connections in Chile and had not lived there for many years. They got married quickly, and he was able to get a green card. Now they were living in Boston and wanted to have a real wedding celebration to which they could invite family and friends. That's why they came to me. They were familiar with All Souls, the Unitarian Universalist Church in Washington, D.C., and knew of the strong, progressive, and social justice identity of our denomination. They hoped I would understand their situation. After she and Jose had gotten married quickly, Jill came home to her family to talk with them about what had happened. They knew that she and Jose were together, but were surprised to learn that he was undocumented. In the awkward silence that followed her disclosure to the family, it was her grandfather who spoke first. "That's just how it was with my mother," he said. "She didn't have papers when she came over from Ireland. and we were always afraid she was going to be arrested. This was the first time that anyone in the family had heard that story. When someone is undocumented, it is by necessity a big secret. Those who know the secret are terrified that the undocumented people in the family will be arrested and deported. Family members often carry these secrets to their graves. You know, we often think that people of darker skin tones might not be documented, but we don't think that of Caucasians. Yet there was a local study done about a dozen years ago that claimed that the largest group of undocumented people in the Boston area were from Ireland. They were able to pass because they were white, and they were employed by the many Irish-owned construction companies in Boston. If we dug deeply enough, I wonder what we would find out about our own family histories. How much do we know about the legal status of our ancestors and how they came here? In my family, it was Tio Armand, my grandmother's brother. Tio is the Portuguese and Spanish word for uncle. I knew that he had lived with my mother's family and had helped raise her and her siblings. I remember him as a kind, quiet, and gentle soul, and we all loved him very much. I didn't find out till after his death that he was undocumented. He had stowed away on a freighter and jumped ship somewhere along the coast, eventually finding his way to my grandparents' home in Lavoie, Massachusetts. As I mentioned earlier, my grandfather was ambitious. He had started a dairy business at a fairly young age and was able to give Tio Armand work in the milk processing plant and pay him under the table. After finding this out, or when I found this out, I remember having a very difficult conversation with my mother. And I chose my words carefully because I knew what my parents thought about people crossing the border from Mexico. So I said to her, what you're telling me is that Tio Armand was an illegal alien. Don't call him that, she responded. But he was here illegally, just like people coming over from Mexico, wasn't he? He was nothing like the people coming from Mexico, she said. He was a good man. He loved his family and wanted to make a good life, and he never made any trouble. I said. So don't you think the people coming from Mexico are good people who want to make a good life and take care of their families? She was so upset by the way I was challenging her prejudices and preconceived notions that she angrily walked away. Valerie and Rick and I attended the Forum on Refugees that was held at Town Hall on Thursday night. The refugees who spoke had recently come from Iraq, Afghanistan, and the Congo. And they spoke movingly about how well they had been accepted and supported here. It seems we have the ability to overcome our prejudices about skin color when we know the horrific violence and terror that people are fleeing. But when people do that on their own, without coming through some agency or program, when they flee the place of their birth and arrive at our border, or we find them in our communities, our fears and prejudices emerge. We forget easily how important home and family connections are for most of us and how difficult it is to make the decision to go to a foreign land. Now, I know that many of us here have joked about moving to Canada because of one Republican administration or another. But something like that is never anything we would do frivolously. That's also true of anyone coming here. It would only be under extreme circumstances that we would leave family and friends and the life we have known. And we are blessed that this country is seen as a place of freedom and opportunity. And the refugees who spoke on Thursday night reminded us how often we take that for granted. When we know our own immigration histories and take the time to listen to those of others, only then can we truly know where we came from, who we are, and where we are going. Amen, and blessed be. Please rise in body or spirit. Our closing hymn is De Colores. Sandi will start out singing the Spanish verse, and if you're brave enough, you can join her on that, but then the English verses are on the other side.
De colores se visten los campos en la primavera. De colores son los pajaritos que vienen de fuera. De colores es el arco iris que vimos lucir, y por eso los grandes amores de muchos colores me gustan a mí. All the colors, yes, the colors we see in the springtime with all its flowers. All the colors when the sunlight shines
When I first moved to Berkeley to go to seminary, I was amazed. When I lived in Boston and in Western Mass, people were segregated by race and color. And in Berkeley, there was just this enormous mix of everybody walking the streets together and being together. And I realized this is what the world should be like. This is what we should be like. And so I invite us all, as we leave here this morning, to contemplate that sense of oneness and unity, that we are all together, that we may have come here on different ships, as Martin Luther King Jr. said, but we are definitely in this same boat now. And we have a planet and its people that need so much of our care. Amen. Please be seated for the rosary.